The following instructional video program, made possible through a grant from the United States Olympic Foundation, has been produced and endorsed by the United States Amateur Confederation of Roller Skating. It is offered as an educational tool for the development of active or hopeful participants in amateur roller skating competition and persons who are or may wish to become coaches and/or judges of amateur artistic roller skating competition. The techniques and the disciplines of artistic roller skating that it illustrates are recognized by the United States Amateur Confederation of Roller Skating as official standards for which successful competitors are expected to strive, towards which competent coaches are expected to teach, and by which commissioned judges are expected to score. Viewers are encouraged to utilize all the technology available on video playback units, such as still frame, variable play speed, and instant review to individualize as much as possible the presentational pace of the instructions and illustrations. A printed guide has been created to supplement this video production and should be attached to the cassette case. The subject of this program is roller skating figures. Your coach and commentator is Don Gates of Utica, Michigan.
Richard, that's a little bit too big. Justin, that trailing arm is still a little bit too high before the inner back. Welcome to the world of roller figure skating. For the next hour and a half, we would like to present to you some of the concepts and intricacies of school figure skating as practiced internationally and in the United States. Little bit of subcurve on that change of edge. And watch the three-wheel. The material presented is a result of information accumulated over the past 15 years. And I would be remiss not to acknowledge the many contributions made by Günter Koch, Helena Beck, Ernest Schwartz, and Astrid Bader of West Germany, and John Daney of the U.S. Oh, now that hip was much, much too open. You had way too much turnout in that free foot. Expert figure skating is a skill that can be learned by anyone who so desires it and is accomplished by competent coaching, retention of information, concentration, and intense practice. Of all the artistic disciplines, and because of its scientific nature, figure skating most readily lends itself towards the attainment of perfection. Inside shoulder just a tiny bit lower. Roll. Let the skate roll. Don't fight it. Justin is a two-time world team member. On his first trip to New Zealand at the world team level, he obtained a laudable 4th place. And this last year at Pensacola, the 1988 World Championship, topped it off with a bronze medal. Your body axis, right here. Richard Boyk, first-year world team member, went to Pensacola, Florida with a fresh silver medal from the United States Championships to obtain a 7th place in his first world meet. Lynn Sawinski, second-time world team member, 1987 bronze medalist at the world level, 1988 United States champion, and runner-up silver medalist, World Championship. Now stand up and present. Before we get into the actual skating of the figures, I think it's extremely important that we all understand the same vocabulary, the same geometry of figures. We start with 2 or 3 6-meter circles. The tangency, or the point where the 2 circles touch, has a strike zone, and all takeoffs and strikes will take place within this area. We'll go into further detail and explain the actual strike zone in a bit. Important for geometry to understand the markings on the circle. The most important probably being the long axis, or the longitudinal axis, that bisects the 2 or 3 circles in a serpentine. At that point, we will refer to this as the apex of the circle, where the long axis crosses the top of the circle. It is the halfway mark. We then have quarter marks, a 1/4 mark if we were going in this direction, followed by a 3/4 mark directly opposite it. For the purpose of doing double threes, we need to find the 3rd mark and the 2/3 marks. All of these are related to the center point, the actual center of the figure circle. When we are doing double 3 figures, the area between the 3rd marks we will refer to as the bridge. The short axis, of course, runs through the tangency directly perpendicular to the long axis. The strike zone, very important area in reference to figure skating because all of our strike-offs and takeoffs are going to take place in this area. It is not, of course, marked on the floor, as are not any of the other reference or geometric lines. However, it is going to vary from skater to skater because the strike zone extends for one skate length on one side of the long axis, one skate length on the opposite side of the axis, and one skate length to the inside of this circle, and one skate length to the inside of this circle. All takeoffs and all strike-offs must take place in this area. The box is bisected by the long axis this direction and bisected by the short axis in this direction. The long axis going through here, the short axis going through here. The takeoff must take place within that strike zone. Now, we have several options, or perhaps we have several options. Our rule book says that some part of the skate on a strike-off must be on the long axis, and the feet must remain within the strike zone. I'm going to ask Justin to place his heel wheels on the long axis, and then his thrusting foot behind it. The danger with this position in the takeoff is that our rule book also says that this thrusting foot may never cross the long axis. And if he takes off in this position, which I'm going to ask him to do, there is a very, very good possibility that this skate is going to cross the long axis. Would you try it once? And there was some movement across the long axis. You might also try putting the toe wheels on the long axis. Because we are within our rule that some part of the skate be on the long axis. The problem with this, the danger of this, is that the thrusting foot is already out of the strike zone. So the best compromise is to move the skate so it's approximately cut in half by the long axis and take off. There is much less danger of that thrusting foot crossing the long axis. Definite T position. The problem with this technique is that if this is the position of the thrusting foot on the initial strike, you would also want to have it close to that on rolling takeoffs. And in order to do that, the foot will have to turn 90 degrees, and it will definitely cause a stoppage in the roll of the skate. The next possibility is the L takeoff, where the heel is directly in line here. Once again, the 90-degree turnout would cause a stoppage if we tried to get the foot back into that position on a rolling takeoff. Consequently, most skaters and coaches have modified themselves into using either the modified T position or the modified L position. Let's demonstrate the thrust in the roll of the outer forward strike-off. And now the thrust in the roll of the inner forward strike-off. One must be extremely careful at this point that the skate does not three-wheel immediately after the thrust. The inside forward takeoff, likewise, be careful and alert that no three-wheeling takes place after the thrust. Rotary takeoff, position 1, toe to toe. And you'll try to strike toe to toe. Very good. Option 2, rotary takeoff. The toe of the striking foot is going to hit someplace toward the inside of the skate. Slightly across the toe. Again, one must be very careful that the skate does not three-wheel immediately after the thrust. We are seeing this being done in rotary takeoffs, and we find it unacceptable because the striking foot is already out of the strike zone before she pushes. Feet side by side, rotates the hip, picks up the foot slightly and sets it down on an inside edge, toe to toe. feet alongside, weight on the thrusting foot, raise this foot slightly off the floor, rotate the hip, and toe to toe. The striking foot lifts slightly off the floor, crosses the toe before the thrust. We are seeing this takeoff used. Once again, we do not like it any more than we do in the outer back because the striking foot is almost out of the strike zone, and we find this a very awkward and angular position to be in. Try taking off. Schaefer takeoff number 1. The important thing to remember is that the thrusting foot may not cross the long axis. We see too many people standing in the strike position with the thrusting foot already across the long axis. It must be this side of the long axis, the about to be employed foot behind the heel. The advantage of this takeoff is that the shoulders and the hips are already rotated to go in this direction. Go. Schaefer takeoff number 2, make sure that the thrusting foot is not across the long axis. This time, instead of pushing from this position, we're going to pick up the skate, set it down, and thrust. Again, number 2. Schaefer takeoff number 3. And we are seeing too much of this, where the about to strike foot rolls past the heel. It's already out of the strike zone. That makes it incorrect to begin with. And this foot is dangerously close to the long axis. Actually stand across the long axis, Richard. Yeah. Even more than that. Make it obvious. Okay. Number 3, and the skate actually rolls. The thing to remember about the Schaefer takeoff as opposed to the rotary is that the push comes from the outside of the thrusting foot, as opposed to all our other takeoffs where the thrust comes from the inside. Outer forward rolling takeoffs. We must be very careful that we consider the strike zone. We must be careful that the foot takes the floor on 4 wheels. The new striking foot should not take the floor until the thrusting foot has pivoted. Judges are well aware at this point that 3 wheels can very easily be set down. The inner forward takeoffs. Once again, we must watch for 3 wheels and be aware of the strike zone. We have just demonstrated the heel-to-toe technique used. We are now showing the outer forward with the heel to instep. On the inner forward, heel to instep. Be very careful that the skate does not deviate the line. The outer back takeoffs. The about to be striking foot is brought to the instep and set down with a slight pivot of the thrusting foot. The inner back rolling takeoff. Once again, the about to strike foot is brought somewhere along the inside of the thrusting foot. One must be careful that the about to strike foot does not pass the old foot. The backward rolling Schaefer takeoff. It lends itself to figures where you want rotation completed as soon as possible. It is a difficult maneuver, however, to teach. Consequently, it is not usually utilized until we reach the junior and world class level. Most important thing now that we are stressing is correct body axis in the skater. There's a basic rule that we try to follow at all times, that the inside shoulder, the shoulder closest to the inside of the circle, should be slightly lower than the outside shoulder. There's a shoulder line, and it should be parallel with the hip line. There's a body axis that goes from the employed ear through the employed shoulder, the employed hip, the employed knee, and the employed ankle. Okay, now if you just roll around and show the correct body axis. Inside shoulder slightly lower, outside shoulder slightly higher. As we approach the takeoff, we get rid of the lean of the body axis, go through a vertical position, and now the inside shoulder is lower, the outside shoulder slightly higher. How much higher? Well, some people have measured it, and they say it's approximately 12 degrees. The amount of lean, of course, will depend upon the amount of speed that the skater is moving. The outside shoulder is lower, and the inside shoulder is higher. This is incorrect body axis. Even more, Lynn, exaggerate more. Now we have broken the body axis in the neck and the hips. Okay, now start dropping the hip more. Outside hip, drop the outside hip. There you go. The hands and shoulders are our next concern. They should be approximately waist high. Definitely not up here. By the same token, not drop down here. They should maintain that height through the entire figure. The shoulders remain down, with the inside shoulder slightly lower than the outside shoulder. Okay? A little too much lean with the head, Lynn. Okay, now raise them up too high. Higher. Raising the arms too high, as likewise the free leg, pulls weight away from the central body axis and can distort movement in the figure. Now raise them even higher as you rotate. Same thing on this circle. Yeah, raise them on the takeoff too. Okay, now put them way down, way down low, lower. The hand should be held flat and parallel to the floor, with the fingers neither spread out or clenched into fist. They should not be concave, and they should not be convex. They must be parallel to the floor, not because it aesthetically appeals to the eye, but because by turning the palm, it rotates the elbow and the shoulder. Likewise, to turn it this way opens up the shoulder and the elbow too much. Okay, first show the locked knee. We never want to use this type of knee, where the kneecap has pushed all the way back into here. Okay, now we have a bent knee that we utilize on takeoffs, more. And that appears to me the only time that we would need to use a bent knee. Now we want a tall knee. Don't let it lock, just stay as tall as you can without locking. And now a soft knee that we would use on turns. The free leg should be extended downward with the foot and the toe turned downward and outward. Some part of the free foot must be over the line, either the heel truck, the middle of the skate, or the toe. The problem with the toe wheels being over the skate is it tends to give an appearance of being cross-traced. Now do the same thing forward. The same thing applies when the foot is in front. Some part of the skate must be over the line. A little distance from the floor, the toe turns slightly downward and outward with either the heel truck, the middle of the skate, or the toe truck. Once again, the toe truck over the line gives an appearance of being crossed. Let's demonstrate carrying the free leg too high in front or too high behind. Our rule book says that the free leg should be carried a little way from the trace. By moving the free leg too high in front or too far in back, we can destroy the body axis. For the sake of symmetry, whatever distance the free leg is carried in front should be carried in a trailing position. Passage of the free leg. We have two methods currently in use. One is to parallel the free foot as it passes alongside. The other is to keep the toe turned slightly downward and outward as it passes through. One must be careful not to abuse either method. By flattening the free foot and passing it through, there is a danger of raising the free hip, especially when doing inside edges. One must be careful not to become too extreme when passing the free leg through pointed downward and outward, that it becomes violent and angular. Yeah, exaggerate what it does to the hip. Try to set your torque before you rotate, Richard. One of the most difficult maneuvers in figure skating is rotation. In order to rotate properly, the body axis must be centralized and the upper body and the lower body rotating about the same axis. In setting the torque with the shoulders in one direction and the hips in another, and then allowing the upper body to catch up with the lower body, we can maintain that central body axis. Likewise, on the inner edge, we have established a torque. The inner edge, of course, lends itself to an error in the middle of the rotation by the raising of the free hip. This must be avoided at all cost. The hips must be kept as level as possible before, during, and after rotation. Changes of edge in roller skating are either outside to inside or inside to outside. For the purpose of demonstrating, we will use two circles. In the method Lynn is now employing, the free leg passes through prior to the change of edge, remains stationary until approaching the next takeoff. There is little or no movement in the body or the free leg. And now we use the movement currently used by world-class skaters and much in use in Europe. The free leg moves immediately on the change of edge, either to a trailing or forward position. One must be careful in using this technique, however, that the change of edge does not become violent. Inner to outer forward change of edge with the still free leg method. Backward change of edge, outside to inside. Probably one of the most difficult maneuvers in figure skating. If the free leg is carried directly over the line prior to the change, it makes the change of edge much easier. The body should pass through a vertical position in going from the outside to the inside. Outside to inside back change of edge using the dropped or moving free leg method. Again, one must be alert that the change of edge does not become violent or that it doesn't become an S change. The inner to outer back change of edge. Free leg held in a still position on the change and then moved after. The hips must be kept very level and there is very little movement in the body. The inner-outer change of edge where the free leg moves immediately upon the change. Remember that the faster the movement of the free leg, the more possibility for error. There are 16 body positions that we utilize in figure skating, primarily to prepare for and exit turns. The numbering of these 16 body positions is arbitrary. However, they should be understood if one is to use them in conjunction with the brochure accompanying this cassette. Position number 1. Shoulders are open to the outside of the circle. Free leg is carried back with the hip in an open position. Position number 2, shoulders are turned to the outside of the circle, and the hip and the free leg are in a closed position. Position number 3, hips are in open position and the shoulders are closed toward the center of the circle. Position number 4, the hip is closed forward, the shoulders are closed to the center of the circle. These are the first 4 positions on outer forward edges. Position number 5, inside forward edges, shoulders are open to the center of the circle, and the hips are open and the free leg is extended. Position number 6, the shoulders are rotated to the center of the circle, and the free leg and the hip are in closed position. Position number 7, the hip is in open position, and the shoulders are closed and turned to the outside of the circle. Position number 8, the hip and the free leg are in closed position, shoulders rotated outside the circle. Following the 8 forward positions, we move into position number 9. On an outside back edge, hip and free leg are open, shoulders rotated outside the circle. Position number 10, hips are rotated closed, shoulders are still outside the circle. Position 11, shoulders are rotated to the inside of the circle, and the free leg and the free hip are open. And position 12, shoulders, arms rotated to the center, free leg and free hip closed. Inside back edge, position 13, shoulders rotated to the center, hips and free leg open. Position 14, the shoulders are rotated to the center of the circle, whereas the free leg and the free hip are in closed position. Position 15, free leg and hip are in open position, shoulders rotated to the outside of the circle. And finally, position 16, shoulders rotated outside, hip and free leg closed.
It's extremely important to remember that when skating these 16 positions, the weight must be distributed in a specific place. The general rule is, when skating in a forward direction, the weight should be carried back center. When skating in a backward direction, the weight should be carried front center. It's a very, very small distance between front center and back center. I always avoid using the term heel or toe because skaters tend to go to extremes and either put too much weight too far back and destroy the body axis, or too far forward, if I say toe, and destroy the body axis forward. Lunging is a serious body error that we find in skating, and it's caused by the skater breaking their body axis as they get ready to push, usually on initial strikes. It can also happen on a rolling takeoff, where they break forward at the waist, usually drop the head, and then attempt to push, usually resulting in a slip on the takeoff. Chugging is a very, very serious error cause, impedes purity of roll, and it happens because the skater is constantly shifting their weight from front center to back center and back and forth, causing the skate to move in a chugging action. Scooting is even more serious an error than chugging because the skater, in addition to shifting weight, is using the free leg to actually pull himself in a forward action. usually occurs when the skater is running out of momentum to finish the circle. Hitching is another major serious tracing error where the skater puts too much weight on the trail portion of the skate, the heel when skating forward, the toe when skating backward. We'll demonstrate both. And it's causing the skate to ride outside, and then she slides the front wheels back to the line. Fishtailing, another serious tracing error, happens when the skater gets too much weight to the lead part of the skate, taking all the pressure off of the trail part, and in this case, rolling forward. The heel has to hitch or fishtail to get back to the line. Steering is a tracing and a form error in which the skater uses some part of his body, the free side as opposed to the employed side, shoulder, arm, hip, leg, or foot, to continue press him back to the line because he is not riding on a pure edge. Really pull it, Richard. Get that hip forward as much as you can. Good. Subcurves, another serious tracing error, occur when the skater constantly deviates from the line by going inside and outside, a weaving pattern, unintentional deviations from the arc. Three-wheeling, another serious error in tracing, occurs when the skater puts too much pressure either toward the toe or toward the heel, causing one wheel to actually lift off the floor instead of rolling on all four. Good. Good. Can you lift the toe wheel now? Good. Good.
A touchdown is a very serious error because it demonstrates complete loss of body balance. The weight of the free foot takes the floor at any time prior to, after, during a turn, or in just plain skating. A tap is not as serious an error as a touchdown because the complete body weight does not go on the free foot. Grazing is another error in tracing because the free leg carelessly brushes the floor when passing from front to back or back to front.
Karate chops occur and they're a body error. They're caused by the skater over-torquing the body, especially one arm, usually the trail arm, and as they turn, using a cutting action with the arm. Side saddle occurs. It's a form error when the skater is riding a forward or a backward edge and twists the pelvis sideways instead of rotating. They over-torque the lower portion of the body while keeping the upper portion of the body supposedly rigid. The outer forward three turn is executed by rotating the shoulders in toward the circle, keeping the hip well pressed back. We have established a torque. The upper torque is rotated into the circle, the lower torque is rotated all. At this point, we have to decide what size the cusp of the turn is going to be. Either a half a skate length, where the toe goes in a half a skate and then slides through, or a full skate length. In the full skate length, the heel or trailing wheels will slide across or scrape across the line. At this point also, the body presses and reverses its torque. We'll start first by demonstrating a half skate length cusp.
One must be very alert at this point to watch for three wheels either going into or coming out of the turn.
The inside forward three turn is executed by approaching the turn with the weight back center. As we reach the turn, we initiate the pressure into the circle with pressure slightly with shoulder and hip. The weight then creeps up toward the front of the skate and the heel slides through. Once again, either a half length cusp or a full length cusp. It is extremely important that the free hip and the free leg follows through with the turn, ending up back over the line.
Once again, we must be alert for three wheels either going into or exiting the turn.
The outer back three turn is executed with a closed hip. The shoulders are torqued open, the hip is torqued closed. The pressure is front center. The pressure creeps toward the heel as the lead shoulder and hip press in. The hip stays closed and the skate comes through. Good. Good. We approach the inside back three turn again with the closed hip, and keeping the hip closed, we initiate the turn with the weight front center by pressing the lead shoulder and the lead hip slightly in to initiate the turn, and then slide the toe portion of the skate through. The essence of doing double threes, whether they be figure 10, figure 11, 12, or the paragraphs or the serpentines, is the placement of the three turns that we just described and demonstrated, except that instead of the three turns being placed on the long axis, they must be placed at the third marks of the circle. I'll ask Justin to step over here on this third mark, and Lynn directly opposite him for this third mark, and Richard at the apex where the long axis crosses the line. In all of the double threes, there is a rotation involved between 1/3 and 2/3. The rotation must be done or at least started by the time the skater crosses the long axis.
One of the criteria in the execution and the judging of double threes is placement. Another is consistency of cusp size, and another, firmness of edge on the bridge. One must be extremely careful that the bridges are clean and solid. The foot must get back to the line.
Free leg over the line. Lynn, watch it.
Most tracing errors in bridging are caused from poor body rotation. As in all figure skating, the least amount of body movement, the better. As we approach the outside forward bracket, the shoulders should level off. The weight is back center. We initiate the turn by pressing the lead shoulder and hip slightly outside, 1/2 a skate length, sliding the heel through, and exiting on a pure inner back edge. Careful attention must be paid that the entrance edge and the exit edge are pure. Approaching the inside forward bracket, the shoulders once again should level off. Weight is back center. We initiate the turn by pressing the lead shoulder and hip slightly outside the circle, so allow to a cusp 1/2 a skate length. We exit on an outside back edge, and the weight is front center. As we approach the outer back bracket, the inside shoulder will be slightly lower. We then level off. Weight is front center. We establish the torque, press the heel out slightly to form a cusp 1/2 a skate length, reverse the torque as the toe slides through, and exit on a pure inner forward edge. One must be very careful after the outside back bracket that the inside shoulder is slightly down, not the outside shoulder. That would cause us to do a counter. The inner back bracket. Approach on an inner back edge, the weight is primarily front center, inside shoulder slightly down. As we approach the apex, the shoulders level off, knees soften, heel presses out, toe pushes through 1/2 a skate length, and exits on a pure outer forward edge. Just as in any 1-foot turn, we must make sure that the entrance and exit edge are pure, and the body action is under control. Outside forward rocker. Approach on an outer forward edge, press in 1/2 a skate length, exit on an outer back. The end circle, figure 3. The most crucial part of the figure is probably this outer back rotation before the outer back turn. Once again, 1/2 a skate length in, push the toe through. The end circle, riding figure number 1.
Pass the free leg through at the quarter mark to close the hip. The hip remains closed. The shoulders are now open outside. Pass the free leg through at the quarter mark to open the hip. Press in 1/2 a skate, push through.
Once again, purity of edge is essential, entering and exiting the rocker turns, making sure that the skate does not change edge or flat out before the turn, which is most likely to happen, or after. There is another method of free leg movement formerly used in which the free leg stays in front before and after the turn. And likewise on the back to forward turn, free leg passes through and remains in front after the turn. The problem with this method is we have found it is almost impossible to execute a true rocker using this free leg motion. The turn will not point to the center of the circle. The turn will not exit on a pure outer back edge. There is usually a flat accompanying a turn. If this method is used, one must make sure that it is truly a rocker turn and not a three-turn or a flat turn.
Inside forward rocker, very still figure, free leg stays back and open, press in like a three-turn, and exit on an inside edge. Press in, push through.
Once again, it is crucial that the entrance edge remain right up to the turn and that the exit edge be immediately pure following the turn. As the end circles in Figure 20 are nothing more than a composition of Figure 1 and Figure 3, the end circles in Figure 21 are nothing more than a combination of Figures 4 and Figure 2. The outside forward counter, Figure 22. In this method, we pass the free leg through on the outer forward edge, approach the turn, press the toe through a half a skate length, ending on a pure outside back edge. Care must be taken that the turn remain on four wheels and that the edge be maintained right up to the turn. Another method of free leg movement is to remain backward with the free leg before the turn and in a still position after the turn. Likewise, on the backward outside edge, there is no free leg movement before the turn and it remains trailing after. If this method is used, however, it is essential for symmetry that if the free leg does stay still on the backward edge, it should stay still on the forward edge. both methods can produce a true counter. As in all counters and rockers, the cusp should point directly to the center of the circle, either preceding it or following it. The inside forward counter, figure number 23, approaches on an inside forward edge. Free leg has passed through in front and remains in front after the turn. Care must be taken on the inner back edge that the free hip does not raise. The inner back rotation here is crucial to the figure. The turn presses out half a skate length and pushes through half a skate length. The edge must be maintained right up to the turn and exit solidly and purely. A former method of execution used in the inside counter was to pass the free leg through and keep it in a leading position after the turn. We have found that this method is not conducive to producing a good counter turn. It is difficult to get the cusp to point to the center of the circle and to get the shoulders of the turn of equal size. It's usually followed by a flat.
The geometry in a set of loops has some definite similarities to our 6-meter and 5-meter circles. We do have 2 circles, or 3 in the case of a serpentine, all connected. We have a long axis going through and bisecting all 2 or 3 circles, a short axis at the point of tangency perpendicular to the long axis. We have a strike zone, exactly similar to that in the larger circles. The loop itself is composed of the arcs of 3 circles. We leave arc D and enter the arc of circle A until reaching this point, at which point we use the curvature of circle B, the smallest circle, until it resumes connection with circle C, and then once again D is to D as A is to C. Calling it by name, as we start the figure going in this direction, we have the entrance shoulder of the loop, which goes to here. Entrance shoulder and entrance third. This we will refer to as the crown of the loop, and this we refer to as the exit third and the exit shoulder, returning back to the point of origin.
In actuality, the arc of the entrance shoulder and the exit shoulder and the entrance third and the exit third are not exactly the same. However, for the point of clarity, we have not inscribed additional circles.
We start the outer forward with the shoulders in closed position. Push off, keeping the hip back and very open. Increase the depth of the edge, roll the crown, and come out. The object is to trace the entrance shoulder, the entrance third, the crown, the exit, and back to the exit shoulder. Pace is extremely important. The skate will slow down slightly on the crown because of the increased friction, but the skate may not stop. We try to stay on 4 wheels as much as possible. 1, 2, and 3 for the exit. The entrance is 1, The crown is 2, the exit is 3. We try to get that fourth wheel back down as soon as possible and try to delay and wait with the free leg for as long as possible. Try not swinging the free leg wide. Keep the hip open and the free leg directly back.
Try to make sure that the skate is doing a loop and not a circle.
The inside forward loop. We will start first in this position with the shoulders turned toward the inside of the line, lead hand over the line. We take it down, 1, crown 2, out 3. There is a tendency in this loop to always want to cut the exit shoulder. This can be remedied by bringing the loop and the skate out on the long axis. Press down into the skate and into the foot. Try to watch the wheels of the heel truck to see if the line is threading between them. We'll now try a cross check on the initial start. This technique is becoming more prevalent lately. The technique of the free leg and the foot is the same.
There is a tendency on all inner loops to lean out of the circle either during the loop or on the exit side. This problem must be remedied if a correct loop circle is to be skated.
Again, watch the difficulty of the inner forward loop of not cutting the exit shoulder. Delay the free leg as much as possible. Figure 16, the outer back loop. We are going to start this loop with the Schaefer takeoff that we demonstrated earlier. The rotation is already completed. Close the hip, set the torque between the shoulders and the hips. Hold the torque, hold the free leg as long as possible. Again, notice the tendency for outside takeoffs to be late.
If the free leg moves too early, or if the lower torque is lost, the skate will rock over to a flat in the crown of the loop, thereby destroying the exit of the loop itself.
Again, we try to remain on 4 wheels as long as possible. Be careful of increase of speed. Try to keep a constant pace. Try to get the 4th wheel back down as soon as possible. And look for loops and not circles. Same figure, different strike. Rotary strike. Now he has to rotate after the strike before the loop.
Crucial things to look for: clean entrance and exit shoulders, no wobble or no hitching of the skate either before or after the loop. Wobble and hitching is likely to occur on the exit side.
We must be very careful on the inner back loop not to bring the free leg into the instep and then out to the side, what we refer to as the L movement. Hold, 2 and 3. 1, 2 and 3.
One of the most common errors experienced in the inner back loop is the raised free hip on the exit side. This causes the body to contort and lean outside of the circle, impeding the roll of the exit side and causing lack of correct body axis.
Try to keep the free leg directly in front of the employed foot at all times, except when it passes alongside. Again, try to stay on 4 wheels as long as possible, and back to 4.
All the other remaining loops are just combinations of the 4 that we have just experienced. 14, 15, 16, and 17. Now we have put them together to compose the forward paragraph. We also use them in the backward paragraphs, the backward and forward serpentines. They are all basic combinations of the first 4 basic loops. Now we're ready for some close-up shots of these same basic loops. Watch for the length of time that 4 wheels are on the floor and the length of time that we're on 3 wheels. Ideally, we would like to be on 3 wheels only for the crown of the loop and then back. The 3-wheel action is a natural action caused from the depth of the edge that has to be executed at the crown. This should be kept to a minimum. A close-up of the Schaefer takeoff for the outer back loop. Making sure that the free leg returns back over the line after the loop will help facilitate a clean exit edge. In all loops, forward and backward, in order to best judge the tracing of the loop itself, which is rotated 360 degrees around, on a forward loop, you will get a better view by watching the heel truck. If the line is threading through the heel wheels, the skate is tracing. On a backward loop, if the line is threading through the tow truck, then we can assume that the tracing is on.
Bring it out on a long axis. Push down in the crown. Push down. That's it. 1, 2, 3.
The preceding has been an overview of the tried and tested principles of effective figure skating. The fact that our American figure skaters, both men and ladies, have been successful in the past decade in a previously European-dominated event attests to the fact that our techniques are on the line.
The preceding instructional video program, made possible through a grant from the United States Olympic Foundation, has been produced and endorsed by the United States Amateur Confederation of Roller Skating. It is offered as an educational tool for the development of active or hopeful participants in amateur roller skating competition and persons who are or may wish to become coaches and/or judges of amateur artistic roller skating competition. The techniques in the disciplines of artistic roller skating illustrated here are recognized by the United States Amateur Confederation of Roller Skating as official standards for which successful competitors are expected to strive, towards which competent coaches are expected to teach, and by which commissioned judges are expected to score. This presentation on roller skating figures is one of a series of 5 such videotapes available through the USAC RS National Office in Lincoln, Nebraska. The 4 other programs are International Dance, Pairs, American Dance, and Free Skating. All of the oral and visual elements of this program are the exclusive copyright property of the United States Amateur Confederation of Roller Skating, which has sole authority for its use and reproduction.